Well, hello, those in the chat and joining us today. Welcome to our first live show. We're not pros, so either we're going to do it our way. I'm going to go ahead and preface that I'm exhausted today. So if I'm not myself, I'm trying to drink some tea with like some honey, like something, but I'm definitely not myself today. I took 18 middle school and high school students, which is basically 11-year-olds to 18-year-olds to a theme park from 4 p.m. to 12:45 a.m. and then woke up at like 7, no, yes, 7, but didn't go to bed till 2. I'm just very much malfunctioning today, so just disregard anything that comes out of my mouth that is just BS, because I'm just BSing my way through life at this point. Also Sydney, for those that don't know Sydney, you want to say anything
Hi.
or your day?
If Janelle's brain really starts to malfunction, then maybe I'll have to carry this live.
Yeah.
But hopefully she'll stay with us. I'm a little tired today too because I actually tried to wake up early today for once because my sleep schedule is so bad. So I woke up at 8 and I think I went to bed at like 2 or something last night. So I'm a little tired, but I've got my Celsius. So I'll be okay. But yeah, I'm here. So we're here to talk about the beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice.
I know, you can like barely see it, but I was like, whatever, I'll just put it on display. If mine was a paperback, I would hold it in my hands, but oh, there you go.
Far.
Yeah, it might
Plus,
be.
I might need to grab it and like reference, even though I didn't annotate it or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that's not good.
Yeah. So I don't plan to keep everybody here forever. One, because I am malfunctioning. But I feel like the thing that everybody wants to know is what we thought of the book. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that I don't want to say hate, but I disliked this book with a passion and gave it 2 whole stars. If you have me on Goodreads, some of you already know that. But yeah, not my favorite book. I'll explain more in a little bit. But Sydney, what did you think of the book?
I'm just gonna ditto you pretty much because I also gave it 2 stars and I didn't like it. But that's not like saying much from me because I'm not a huge fan of fantasy and I'm definitely not a huge fan of YA fantasy. So I went into it with low expectations because of that. I know that it's not like my comfort genre or like anything that I particularly love reading anyways. And I will say I mean I was enjoying it, like I would say the first like quarter of it. And then cuz there's just like so many ways it could go, so I had like my hopes were growing a little bit. I was like this might be good, I don't know, but then it just like tanked, you know.
Yeah.
And we both did not enjoy. What was it we didn't enjoy? Was it like the way the actual story was told or the plot itself or the characters? I don't know. I feel like it was all of it for me.
Yeah, it really was a lot. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna get to you guys in just a second. I'm just kind of kicking us off really quick. But yeah, for me, the biggest thing that I just feel like just did not do it for me is I felt like it was too much at once. So, like, first of all, reading fantasy is already hard enough sometimes because you're in a new world with new rules in this world. There are new words that you see on every other page. You're trying to learn the new vocab. And I feel like diving into a fantasy world can already be like a struggle because there's so much to learn that you have to catch up with because it's not your world. You don't know the rules. Um, and this one obviously is fantasy, but I feel like plus the what was it? Spanish and French. like
Mhm.
mashed on top of fantasy, it was like overwhelmingly confusing. Like I was just like, where are we going? Half the time they're speaking in French, but there's no translation. So you're supposed to just like kind of understand like through context like what is happening. But I feel like they did not do a great job at like helping me to understand like what are we talking about? Like I was lost half the time. And then I also just felt like, yes, it's YA, but it read very, very young for me. And it was just very
Mhm.
like cheesy and predictable. And I was just kind of like,
Mhm.
this is not my thing. Like I can do cheesy and I can do predictable, but not in this case. It
It
was
was a
just,
little over the top.
yeah, it was a little much.
Yeah, I agree. I think the French and Spanish thing was like a little bit too much. I appreciated like a sprinkle of it, but there was a lot of full sentences or sometimes even like full dialogue paragraphs in French. And I was like, how am I supposed to know? Like, I just
Yeah.
assumed I would skip it because obviously I don't read French. I can't speak French.
Yeah.
And I would assume it's not that important to know. Like, then why add it too, I just don't.
Right. Yeah.
I think it would have been better actually if it was told from Celine's, that's her name, right? Celine's
Yeah.
perspective. Um, if she was the narrator, because then when that happened, although, does she speak French? She came from
I want to say
Italy.
she did, or at least she understood it.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe that wouldn't work then. I was gonna say, like, if it was told from her perspective, then she could like narrate that so and so started speaking French to so and so, and like that was it. Like you didn't have to actually read the French.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That was just a little thing, but um, yeah. And I think what you were talking about with the whole like world building part of it, the magic system. Like I was excited about vampires because I love the traditional typical vampires like story and thing. I think there were definitely elements of that as opposed to Southern Book Club when we had that situation go down with that book. But this one like stayed more true, but not enough still. I feel like it didn't feel very vampire-y to me at
Yeah.
all. I
Yeah.
wish there was more vampire. But
Right. Yeah, it definitely fell flat. And I also feel like we didn't get really any vampire until the end. Like we got those like small like little chapters like from their perspective, but I feel like it none of that really even like was I mean, obviously it wasn't really supposed to be like revealed until the end, but I just felt like it was all kind of like crammed at the end to be like, "Oh yeah, we mentioned vampires, so here's
yeah.
why." Like I was just kind of like, So I don't know. There was a lot of things in this, and I do have some like a few discussion questions that I'll ask and see what y'all think too. But really quick, hello. um, I don't know who all is in here, but welcome. Um, thank you. That is so
Yes,
sweet.
thank you.
I'm so glad because sometimes I film things and upload them, and I'm like, why would someone even want to watch
Same,
this?
same.
This book is on an anti-TBR for me, but I'm here just in case I'm missing out. Yeah,
You're,
honestly, it could stay on the anti-TBR and you'd be okay.
you're not missing out.
Yeah. Here's my predicament. Okay.
You have
So
the second one.
I have okay, wow, I'm getting so confused. So I have this one that I bought because I anticipated loving. And then Barnes& Noble was having their half off all hardback sale after Christmas, and I bought The Righteous, which is the third book, on sale
Wait,
because
oh yeah, that's the third one.
the third book, so I don't even have the second, and now I'm stuck with the third, and I hated the first one, so I'm like,
Mhm.
what am I supposed to do?"
Well, I have heard that the second one is better.
I have heard that too.
I'm not
Yes.
gonna read the second one personally.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm gonna continue the series, but for now, I'm stuck with the third book with a gap. Um, yeah, I wanted to so bad.
At which part did you DNF? I'm curious if you remember
Yeah,
what
how
page,
far?
how far
Yeah,
you got.
yeah. Was it like an immediate turn off, or was it like you're realizing it's going nowhere, so it's time to close it? um, yeah, just definitely not my favorite. I really want to know this from a lot of you, but did you race to the end or was it more of a slow burn? For me personally, I was dragging through this book and I was just like, please I just want to get through this. Like, I just want to move on. Like, I'm so over this. So it was definitely a slow burn, but not by choice. Like, I just could not bring myself to be motivated to read it at all.
Mhm. I think I read it pretty quickly, but partially because like I got to the point where I was like, I just want it to be over, so I raced through it. I think I had the audiobook to go along with, but it didn't like pay off. I was like waiting for something to happen, like so I was like getting like just reading it faster to like figure out the twist or just figure out whatever, and it didn't live up. So I was just like very disappointed when I finished it.
Yeah.
And like, okay, we'll get to that in a second. I was gonna say something, but we'll get to it later.
Molly said page 140 is where my mark is. Yeah. That's
Okay.
a good ways in.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's exactly where it started to go down. Just
yeah, I agree. I remember being at like between page 130 and 150, and I was like, this is going to be the longest book of my life.
Yeah, it did feel very long.
Which honestly, I shouldn't even say that because I didn't hate it as much as I've hated some other books, but
true.
It was pretty bad. And then another question, you guys, that I am contemplating myself is, would you read another book by this author?
Mm.
A big piece of me really wants to say no. Like, no, I just can't. But I feel like it is unjust to basically like judge an author, like they're writing based on one book. So I'm like, I feel like that would be a little unfair. So I probably will, but I will be very selective on which book by the time I read. Like it is gonna matter because this was not for me.
The only one, like I don't know much about this author, but The Wrath and the Dawn, I've heard a lot about. I don't know if if the reviews on that are mixed or what the dealio is with that, but I don't know. I don't feel like I would read another from her, but like if I did, it would be the Wrath and the Dawn series or duology or however many there are. But because fantasy's not my thing, like it's not going to be on a priority list.
Yeah. I think there's one, I'm trying to figure out which one I've seen that I was like, oh, actually, I might read that, but I don't know which one it was. I just saw it on somebody's Instagram post, like 9 books you should read after Kingdom of the Wicked. I don't know which one it was.
Flame in the Mist. Is that what it's called?
Oh,
Flame in the Mist.
Maybe
that's the other one. I've not heard anything about that. I don't know what that looks like.
I haven't either. But yeah. So I probably will end up reading something else by this author, but I will be very, very picky.
Yeah, I think honestly, like instead of starting a whole new series from her, I think I would try and read The Damned first, the second book, just to see if it is better, like people say. But again, not anytime soon. That's like a last resort thing. But
yeah. Mel said, I love fantasy and hated the way this book was written. Yeah, I am right there with you. I am a fantasy girl. Like, I really do. I love my fantasy. That has been like my go-to genre. And after this book, I have contemplated my decision with fantasy. I'm not even gonna lie. I literally was like, I'm done with fantasy. I can't do this anymore.
We talked about that, right? Was that after this book that we read? We were like both just over fantasy, especially fantasy.
Yeah, we were like, Sydney and I were on FaceTime, like talking about this book after we both finished it. And we were basically like, how about we just read all of the fantasy books that are left on our shelves and never buy a fantasy book again? Like, I was just like so over it. Like,
yeah.
So
I'm definitely not buying any new ones for sure.
Yeah. No, me neither. I just can't.
It's just so disappointing because like I don't know why a lot of them end up, at least for me, a lot of the YA fantasy or just fantasy, I guess in general that I read is very disappointing because there's just so many different ways all these books can go, especially this one. I felt like should we get into specifics of the book now? There's not too many people here worried about spoilers, right?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Like with the snake, with Sebastian's snake,
Mm-hmm.
there were so like what was the point of that, honestly?
Yeah.
Why did he have a pet snake that they had a whole chapter for to introduce him? And then like he's like this idea. Like you don't even meet the snake in that chapter. And then you meet him later. He comes like slithering along by people's feet or whatever. And that's it. Like maybe he'll come up later in the series, I don't know, but like there was just so much more I wanted from the snake in particular.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a really weird random like theory that I told Janelle about thinking the chapters with the different perspectives that are like the vampire. I thought like what if that's the snake? Like what if the snake used to be human and he got turned into a snake, but this is like from his POV and he's seeking revenge. Like I don't know, just kind of random and wild, but like that's what I expect. If it's going to be fantastical, I want it to be like super fantastical and like have a talking snake or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I was also confused by that too, because I remember when you told me that theory, and then because you were a little bit ahead of me, and then I read like the chapter where it's like the vampire's perspective, and he's talking about this snake that just ruined his life, essentially. And he's going on about this and how he slithers, and he's like obviously hinting towards this snake. So I'm like, oh, like we have some buildup going here. And it was like, I don't know, they were making it like seem like he was some like important character, and then like it just fizzled and went nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was
that was like for the majority of this book, so much buildup and for what?
Right.
So it's also hard to say because there's two more books or two more books.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because like maybe a lot of questions will be answered later, but like that's what's so dumb about fantasy series. I don't want to read 3 books for one story.
Yeah. And I think with this too, it's like usually if you have a series, there is like a conflict in the first book and you get a resolution with an open end. And then you get the next book with a new conflict, a resolution, and an open end. So the whole idea is to have this conflict and then have this resolution at the end, but maybe it's open-ended to leave room for more creative activity in the next book. But this one, it was like, what is the point? Like, because I was like, where's our anything? Like,
yeah, there were just like the deaths of, they were all girls, right? All female people dying. And it was just like a serial killer on the loose. But it wasn't interesting. Like it was very clear about what was happening.
Yeah.
Right? Or was that just me? Like, honestly, can't even remember the specifics because it was a while since we read it. But like,
yeah. I remember when I remember certain moments. Okay. The way that this book was prefaced, it was as if like, okay, there's going to be this serial killer that is killing these women. And I'm expecting like, oh, we will get a perspective from the killer in his moment of passion of like killing these women or like something. But I feel like we never really got that. We really just got like what the world was hearing about like this thing. I think at one point there was like a discovery, like someone discovered the body. So we got a little bit of that, but I feel like it didn't, like for this serial killer and these women being in the synopsis, I expected that to be like the primary like story. Like this is what we're following. But I felt like that was not it at all. It was a lot between Celine and her best friend, whoever, what is his name?
Pippa.
Yeah. Like them two.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, like, I don't maybe, and then part of me is like, oh, maybe it's because Pippa will be one of the victims, you know? And I'm like, there's all these things, and then I'm like, wait, okay, no, what are we
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh,
Just
okay.
definitely didn't go down the route we expected.
Yeah. I think the
Again,
synopsis was misleading.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like it might have benefited from being told in first person. I think that might have helped a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely, yeah, that I feel like would have helped
because
a lot of
I
ways.
mean, I'm not, yeah, because like with Celine and her PTSD from like killing a man and having to move away from where that happened, and like it's just referred to so much, and like it didn't.
Yeah.
It kind of bothered me. I was like, okay, yeah, we get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really felt like at some moments, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, where you're watching a movie and it's like poor writing and it's like the very beginning of the movie, but like they want the audience to know about somebody's past. So instead of like hinting at it and ease their way in, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, and then that guy who like mugged you 20 years ago, and you're just kind of like, well, thank you for like the obvious, like just like, you know, that kind of like blunt, like this is what happened, but we're just gonna like somehow throw this into conversation so that everybody understands where we're at. Like that's really what I felt like was happening, is like it was so like just blatantly put that it wasn't like, oh, we're discovering like what happened, there's a mystery. It was just like, I
Lazily
killed him.
thrown in. Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Well, typically like that can work if it's something at like the end of a chapter and it's like hooks
Yeah.
you, right? And I think she attempted that. She tried, but like then throughout the rest of the story, it just didn't add up or like make sense why that was so important.
Right.
Yeah, but it did feel kind of lazy.
Yeah, definitely. Mel said, sorry to change the subject, but I felt the same way about Kingdom of the Wicked. Lots of wasted time. I'm hoping Kingdom of the Curse is better.
Interesting.
So from someone who's read both of those books, it depends on what you're looking for in a book. Kingdom of the Wicked, in my opinion, is better only because there's more to it than you're going to get from Kingdom of the Curse, unless you have a different expectation for the book. If you're expecting a storyline out of Kingdom of the Curse, I don't think you get one. I really don't think you get one. But again, that's also my opinion because I love Kingdom of the Wicked and expected it to go that route, and it didn't. So this could just be a difference in expectations, obviously. But I'm really interested to know like what felt like. I guess I can kind of understand some things that felt like wasted time in Kingdom of the Wicked, but I just personally just love that book. So
it's hard because the two are so vastly different. And if you're into the storyline, then you're gonna like Wicked more than Cursed. But like, if your preferences in fantasy are different than just storyline, then maybe you will like Cursed. But
yeah, I do feel like they were different in a way. Like this isn't really a spoiler. This is hinted at, but like Kingdom of the Curse is more like mission focused. Like this is like, you know, her trying to find her sister's killer, essentially, is like really what she's after. And then in the second book, it's purely built on a romance, is what it's built on. So it's like you're not getting two of the same stories and the same plot lines. You're getting two totally different directions. So it really just depends, because some people like Kingdom of the Cursed way more than Kingdom of the Wicked, because they're dependent on the romance instead. So it really just is what you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it, but felt there was nothing to it. I definitely could see that, for sure. I felt like there was nothing to the Beautiful, just because there was, I don't know. Even after reading the book, I feel like usually you get like some kind of like closure, or like the reason for like that and this, and I felt like I was like, what, like, why any of this, like what?
Yeah.
What did I just read? Like, I don't know.
I think the tones and like the atmosphere of the Beautiful were probably the best parts. Like, I feel like the atmosphere was pretty well done. It felt dark. It
Mm-hmm.
felt like New Orleans, although I wish it would have like gotten a little bit more specific with the setting of that. But it did feel like it did a good job with describing. But obviously not enough for me to at least give it 3 stars.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of like some good parts of it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because the truth is it did get 2 stars out of me. So there was something there that didn't make it a 0. For me, I really thought, like, besides all the language in it, I felt like the writing, like, there was nothing wrong. Like, with like, it wasn't hard to read or anything. It was just the fact that there was so much of a foreign language that I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa. And then, yeah, the atmosphere was really great. Like, I really appreciate that. I definitely wish there would have been more world building and more like description of like what, because I feel like in this book it was a lot of like what she saw. Like, I want to know, like, what did she smell in the streets? Like, what did it feel like? What could she hear? Like, I just wanted to know more. Like, what did it feel like? Like, take me there.
Again, with it, like it being third person, you can't really always get that. So if it was first person, again, that's all I'm saying. I feel like that would actually
Yeah.
help a lot with certain aspects of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then I thought, as much as I feel like it was just a waste, I feel like the concept itself was pretty creative and pretty cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, like, the synopsis, the whole idea of the story was great. I just think it was poorly executed. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't think there's anything wrong with like the moral of the story, like any of that. It's just that it could have been done a little bit better. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then this is a good question, only because I feel like it's obvious. But did reading the book impact your mood? If yes, how so? For me, it definitely impacted my mood, and I was cranky. I was really cranky. And after I finished the book, I felt myself on the verge of like a slump. Like, I was just like, I just don't, I never want to pick up, like, I don't want to pick up a book right now. Like, I just, um, but yeah, did it affect your mood in
Um,
a way?
it did. Yeah, I think I was irritated when I finished it. Okay, I guess we can get to it now. The freaking it's back here. The epilogue.
Oh,
Like, the epilogue made me so irritated.
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, first there was nothing, then there was everything.
Yeah, is that what it is?
What does that mean?
There's so many like first chapters for all of her other books at the end. My goodness.
Oh yeah.
First there was nothing, then there was everything. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel like, so my husband made a good point, actually. When I told him about this epilogue, I was like, listen to this epilogue. Like, you don't even need to know the story and know that this is bad. So I read it to him, and he was like, it sounds like she had that quote to begin with and tried to create a story out of it. She was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then built the story on this epilogue. And I was like, that actually is a really good point, because like, where did that even fit in? Because I don't know.
Well, then it does make sense because like this book felt like nothing. So maybe that's why the second book is everything.
Yeah, maybe that's what she's saying. Like,
It's
just
probably more action packed in the second one.
yeah,
But yeah, so when I finished, I was irritated. I'm glad that I had the audiobook to just like throw on so that I could just finish it. Um, I don't feel like the audiobook was terrible either. So like if anybody like would want to just listen to the audiobook as opposed to reading it, maybe that would help, especially like with the accents and stuff. But yeah, I wasn't happy when I finished the book.
yeah, no, me neither. That was, oh my gosh. Um, and then this question is interesting, but how did your opinion of the book change as you read it? So this book is like, I don't know if it was one of my 5-star predictions, but it was a book that I was expecting to absolutely love. Like, I mean, I was like, this is going to be so great. And I remember the beginning of the story being like, oh, this is actually like, this is pretty good. Like, I think this will be really fun. And then again, that 130 to 150 page mark is where everything went downhill. And then I all of a sudden was just kind of like, this is not going to be good. And this is going to be bad. And just, I mean, it was just like, oh, this is getting worse and worse and worse. Like, just, I feel like the more I read, the more disappointed I got.
Mm-hmm.
The epilogue is proof because that is the thing that made me the most angry.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of already touched on that too. Like I went into it with the low expectations and then it kind of got my hopes up a little bit because it was interesting, the introduction and stuff. And then it just went downhill. So
Yeah. Yeah. Not the greatest book. I'm trying to figure out which I should have written down like which of these I wanted to ask, but I did not do that. Um, I feel like just to be petty, this says, how does the book's title work in relation to the book's contents? If you could give the book a new title, what would it be?
that's a
Well,
good question.
I truthfully do not understand why it is called The Beautiful.
I would say it's because of how these vampires are supposed to be beautiful. But
Yeah, I
well,
could see.
where is the vampire content?
Yeah, yeah,
This is a very like the epitome of a first fantasy book, right? So like it's just super introductory and you don't get much meat in the story. So like that's fine. Like that's what I know I hate about fantasy novels. But like if you're going to say that on the cover that vampires are back and like this is supposed to be your typical 1872 New Orleans like ruled by the dead, all of this, like I need it to be chock full of that.
yeah,
And it just didn't deliver. Like it's there. It's a very underlining, right? They don't even say vampire until like page 200, maybe 300 something. They
yeah,
don't even, and I hate when books do that about vampires. Like we know that this is a vampire. Like
yeah,
let's just get to the point already.
right.
So it's called The Beautiful because the vampires are supposed to be beautiful, but no. I don't
Yeah.
know what I would call it. What would you change the title to?
I mean, like, the petty side of me would be like, the crap. Like, don't read this. The 2-star. Like,
The 2-star. 2-star by Renee Adieh.
yeah. I
Um,
just, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think maybe you could call it like I don't know, let's be like very specific if you want a very um accurate book title, you could say like the New Orleans serial killer.
Yeah.
Like have it be centered around Sebastian, or I guess the New Orleans serial killer. and then like throughout you find whatever. I don't even care. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. This book, it just didn't have enough to really know what it is about. I really can't describe it that well.
Yeah.
Celine and her friends.
Yes, I know. I just saw this. Celine and her. Honestly, I feel like there was so much of her and Pippa, right?
Yeah.
Pippa?
I don't
I
know. Like
don't remember that name, but I feel like
it's
it was so much of that. And I remember at one point texting you and asking you, like, okay, so obviously they're friends. Like, why aren't we moving on?
what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's so hard. Like when you hate a book, you just like want to block it all out from your memory too. And so we read this like almost 3 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's just gone. Like it's hardly in my brain anymore,
Yeah.
which is very unfortunate because we have a whole live show dedicated to it. But
Yeah.
is there no one here that did enjoy it? Because
Yeah.
I mean, we're just getting all negative things here, which is sad. But like on Goodreads, I think
It
the
just
average rating isn't isn't great. But I think there's like lots of pretty good.
yeah, it's a 3.67.
Okay, yeah, it's not great or
Ungraded.
terrible, but
Yeah, which is not horrible, but I don't know if anybody else does this, but I read Goodreads reviews to like justify what I feel in a book.
I do that
And
sometimes too.
I read a lot of like the 1, 2 star, 3 star kind of thing. And a lot of the same thing that we're saying, a lot of other people were saying too. Um, but I don't know. I read some of the yeah, like even Mel's review is like one of the 4 star ones
Mm-hmm.
at 4.5. And I'm just like, how? Like
Yeah.
like it makes me feel like, okay, did I miss something? Like did I just not read it the right way? Like is there like a better way to read it? But it does not have horrible reviews. So um I'm trying to think whatever. Oh, I think she's frozen. Maybe. Um I'm just gonna ask another question until she unfreezes. Um I want to pick a good one. Okay. Is the book overrated or underrated? In my opinion, I mean, this is only because I really didn't enjoy the book. I would say overrated. Um, and then obviously, I feel like if you love the book, you would say underrated, but I feel like it was overrated. I was not like uber impressed at all, which I'm so sad about because I really wanted to love this book, but it did not make the cut for me at all. Um, but does anybody else have like, do they think it's underrated, overrated? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you guys thought it was underrated. Like, is there anybody in here that liked it? Like, I really am interested to know. Like, maybe I read the book wrong. Like, just because there's so many like 4 star ratings on this book. So I'm like, okay, did I read it wrong? Like, is it better like with an audiobook? Did I read it backwards? Like, what did I do? um, I'm trying to think of another question. I'm assuming that Sydney's gonna find her way back. I wonder if like her Wi-Fi crashed, maybe, but we'll find out. Maybe. Um, Okay, and then this question is how did it impact you? Do you think you'll remember it in a few months or years? Um, Personally, I don't think I'm going to remember it because it's already left my brain at this point. So, and I'm not the greatest at remembering books anyways. Oh, I think she's back.
Hi. I have no idea what happened.
I don't know either. I was just kind of like, just keep going.
Yeah, I looked at it on my phone because you froze, and so I thought like I was the only one up. but then like we both went away and then the whole thing crashed. So I saw that I was like frozen for like 3 minutes.
Oh my
But I'm
gosh.
back. I don't know what happened.
I did just ask the question if you think the book is overrated or underrated. And I obviously said it was overrated. But
Yeah, I think it's overrated too. Although it's like older now, so I wasn't around when it was getting the most hype.
right. Yeah.
When did it come out? 2019.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it is overrated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also hard to say because we haven't given the full series a chance.
Yeah.
But it's just not my vibe anyway.
Yeah. And then I was actually just answering the question, how did it impact you? And do you think you'll remember it in a few months or years? Um, Obviously, I don't think I'm gonna remember it, only because I can barely remember it as it is, and I read it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
um, but as far as how did it impact me, I think really this book is like, because usually because I tend to like fantasy, I just whatever fantasy book, I just kind of read it.
Mhm.
But I think this one is really kind of helping me learn my reading taste as far as fantasy goes. And like maybe YA fantasy, I should like take a break from and try some new adult or like something else.
Mhm.
Fantasy, if I still want to read fantasy, but this is gonna definitely teach me to be a little bit more like basically know my reading taste a little bit more
Yeah.
because clearly something was off. I mean, the synopsis, I will say, does make it sound really interesting and made me think I was going to love it. But I also think to a degree, it also could have been me not knowing my reading taste. That like maybe I don't like vampires and foreign setting. Like maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that was also the part like with fantasy, I feel like I always expect a different world, but like the fact that it was New Orleans, it confused me
Mhm.
because it was like it's fantasy, but like we're in like real world.
And historical too. It didn't
Yeah.
feel that historical.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
It felt modern day to me.
Right. It felt that
Besides,
way to me too.
besides the language of the French and Spanish
Mhm.
though, that I can see why maybe that was included because of the historical stuff, but like
Mhm.
there was nothing else that really besides also maybe like mention of their outfits, but
Yeah.
um I think for what it taught me or what this book made me realize is that um, I definitely don't like YA fantasy. I mean, I already knew that, but now even more so.
I
But
can relate.
also, I think that there is a good vampire story out there for me
Yeah.
that I still kind of want to find because I love the idea of vampires. I think a very like modern day vampire thing would be good. Um, Not Twilight. I mean, I still have to get to Twilight. I haven't read or watched anything from that whole thing, but um, I don't know. I think there's just something specific I have in mind when I read a vampire novel. I'm like looking for something. I don't quite know what that is. I think Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix was close to that in
Yeah.
the first part of it. And then again, that one tanked. But I think I still like am itching to find that perfect vampire story. Um, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just really hard to find.
Yeah. I also really want that vampire story. And one that I do want to get to, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's probably going to be one of the cheesy ones, but the Vampire Academy, like that
Oh yeah.
whole thing, I really do want to try that because a lot of people really love that with all the vampires and stuff. So I've thought about trying that, but now I'm like super hesitant about anything with vampires because everything that I've experienced with vampires has never made the cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, there's got to be something out there somewhere.
And reading The Beautiful actually did, like, it did, but it also didn't give me vibes of the Vampire Diaries and the originals show, because of like the dark New Orleans setting. It did kind of feel like this would be better as a show, I think. But I don't prefer reading that. Like, if I had to read the Vampire Diaries books, I would hate it. Like, I think that needs to be more of a show. But then if I got like a modern twist on vampires, then I think I could read that. I just don't know specifically what that looks like.
Yeah.
I would be interested to try the Vampire Academy though too. I've heard good things about it, but I don't know anything about what it is. So
I have no idea either.
There's a ton of those, aren't there?
Yeah. Are you wanting vampire focus, or like the story just needs vampires in it? If we're talking about The Beautiful, we were talking about how it felt misleading because they talk about how there's going to be vampires in the book, but we felt like it was all kind of thrown together at like the very end, and it wasn't much of vampires. So it just felt like something was off. So like it had it, but it just wasn't there.
And then in terms of like finding a better vampire story, I would want it to be pretty vampire focused.
Yeah.
Although I think it could go either way. Like, if there's just vampires in it, but there's a lot of talk about them, there's a lot of them in the story that you're like constantly running into them. Like, if you're following a human main character, and then they keep encountering all these vampires, which is what I kind of expected with The Beautiful. And then I don't know though, like I feel like that did happen in The Beautiful, but it just didn't happen well. Like, it wasn't written well.
Yeah.
She did encounter all of these deaths because of a vampire, but it was just so like beating around the bush and not intriguing. Like,
yeah,
I just could care less on what was happening. So
right.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I have 2 more questions. The first one is, would you ever consider rereading this book? Why or why not? I am kind of on the fence because part of me wants to reread it to see if maybe I missed something. Like, because so many people do like this book. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something that I overlooked, or maybe I didn't have the right approach to this book. So there's a piece of me that really wants to reread it. And then there's the other piece of me, because I didn't enjoy it, that never wants to open this book again. Like, I'm just like, no, because it's, as much as I love fantasy, it's ruining it for me. Like, it just ruined it a little bit. So now I have to find my love for fantasy again. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of split both ways.
Yeah, I would like to say that I would, for the same reason as you. Like, I'm definitely not going to get rid of my copy. I think if I were to reread, it wouldn't be all the way through. Like, I would stop right as soon as I'm done with it. Like, if I can tell I'm getting bored with it, I would stop. But I would kind of be interested to read like the first 100 to 200 pages again, to annotate it and like just really tear it apart. Even if I end up hating it again, like if I ever reread it, I would just like write all over it and just like trash the book. But like,
yeah,
I too would want to see if like other things jumped out at me, or if like it just was better overall the second time around. Because you never know unless you try, right?
That's true.
I definitely wouldn't say no. I wouldn't completely write it off, but I have no idea when I would.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I have other books as my priorities.
On my timeline, for sure.
And then the last question, which I really love, and I feel like it's a great way to end this, but did the book strike you as original? Which I think is really interesting. There were definitely pieces of the book that were original,
Mhm.
obviously. I felt like the just like the setting and like the story itself, I think is pretty original. That's again going back to how I think the concept was really great. Um, but then there were things to it that felt super predictable and not original. Um, and I'm trying to, one thing that kind of bugged me a little bit, which I don't know if this really has anything to do with the originality, but I mean, I've obviously seen other books do this. But like Celine and Pippa's relationship, like just the way that like they came to be, like they kind of went through something together and now they're like friends kind of thing. Like obviously I'm
Mhm.
like we've seen that. Um, but there's obviously not much, like there's not many ways you can make characters meet and be friends. But
Mhm.
I probably would have, I don't know. I feel like there could have been a really interesting way that their friendship came about that I think could have really like jump started the story and like would have made me more attached to Celine and Pippa's relationship and them as characters. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what my answer to this would be. I think um, I think it could have been more so original. Again, if it went down like the route of a talking snake,
Yeah.
if it just didn't take itself too seriously,
Hmm.
um, it was very serious and um, just not fun because uh, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. Like um, I think overall, no, it wasn't that original,
Yeah.
just because it is like historical vampires, New Orleans, like that's just your typical
Yeah.
vampire story. It didn't necessarily go down routes that those other vampire stories have, but in general, as a whole, I would say it was kind of the same. Didn't
Yeah.
do anything special for me.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing too, is there wasn't anything in it that was like, whoa, like I've
Groundbreaking. Yeah.
yeah, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's some different like tropes, if you will, that began from one book, from one
Yeah.
story. Like it kind of jump started like this trend
Hmm.
kind of thing. And I feel like there could have been so much in this, like that
Yeah.
would have been
I
done that would have heightened the story.
I definitely don't feel like it reinvented the wheel by any means. Like it just
Yeah.
was kind of the same old thing.
Yeah. It definitely felt that way. Um, so in conclusion, it was not our
Yeah.
that could not be more clear. I really wish that I had liked this book more. Um, one because I thought I would, but also because it's our book club pick. Like I don't want to be sitting up here and like
Yeah.
hammering a book.
That
Like
book for an
it's
hour.
not fun. It's really, I mean, there's some things about it that can be fun, but like it's also somebody's art. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm glad that there are people that love it. If really nobody loved it, then I would be even more sad. But since there are people that love it, I'm like, okay.
It's for a
I
certain group of people. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, that concludes our first official live show. If you're still watching live, there will be tomorrow's live show on Sydney's channel for Starfish, which I'm super excited to talk about that one. That one I don't think will be as negative.
Yeah. That should be a good discussion.
Yeah.
Um, and it's scheduled up right now on my channel for 3 p.m. Central Time, but Janelle and I just decided that we need to push this one or that one back 2 more hours also, so that Janelle can be there because she got scheduled to work. So we want her there, of course. So I'm going to push it back. If you set your reminder and everything, then it'll just let you know the correct time when it's happening. But yes, that'll be on my channel. So very excited to talk about starfish.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you guys for joining us today. I hope this was fun, and I hope you were surprised. I hope this was a surprise. I hope we were entertaining, and I cannot wait for our next live show and all the live shows to come this year.
Yay.
It's going to be great. All right. We love you guys, and I guess we'll see some of you, maybe all of you tomorrow.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.